I think there's a little confusion on what I call slip hunting or how I go about slip hunting. So today I want to talk about that. Since the last Q&A video I did, that's basically, with few exceptions, the only question I've got has been about slip hunting in mostly swamp terrain. Through talking to multiple people about it, I can see where majority of people are going about it the wrong way, and maybe some of that is my fault. Maybe I didn't explain some things good or show things in videos maybe how I should have. So today this video is gonna be dedicated to slip hunting and kind of my do's and don'ts and what I'm looking for. First off, I'm getting everything ready to move into the new office. So if I turn this camera around, I got boxes up here about to the ceiling. I cleared one little hole right here where I can sit in front of the camera. So anyway, it is what it is today. So the first problem I'm seeing, now let me take a step back. So in Florida, we basically have three different types of deer hunting that are the most popular. So we have dog hunting, that's using dogs to pursue deer, obviously. And then we have slip hunting, which is what a lot of other states refer to as still hunting. So we have slip hunting, that's being mobile, that's not using a tree stand. That's basically anything not using a tree stand, where you can move, slip through the woods, sit a little while, move a little while, sit a little while, whatever the technique is, but it's mobile and it's on the ground. Still hunting would be with the use of a tree stand. So you go in, climb up into some type of elevated position, and that would be considered still hunting. So just wanted to clarify that for the non-resident guys, that I know a lot of YouTube videos from other states talk about going still hunting, and that's their slip hunting. So when I'm saying still hunting, that's sitting in a tree stand. When I'm saying slip hunting, that's moving, being mobile. Dog hunting is dog hunting. So I'm gonna start with, I've had multiple guys reach out to me about slip hunting, and how it looks fun, and in my videos it looks like I'm always seeing a lot of deer, and I am, but I've had 10-15 people send me pins or locations, or screenshots, like, hey, I'm looking at this swamp for slip hunting, and what they're calling a swamp may be 20-30 acre cypress pond. There may be 100-acre cypress pond. So while that's doable, that's going to be, but that'd be more, conditions would have to be absolutely right for it. If I was going to slip on, and I'm going to use that as an example to start with, I do slip hunt those places occasionally, not terribly often, because it's not going to take long. Basically, it's so small, and the amount of acreage inside that I can see where a deer could be is limited. So, most of the time it's going to be standing water, and the deer are going to be in 3 or 4 places. So that would take me 10 minutes. So it's not really practical. I want to go somewhere where I can slip all day. But when I do slip those little places, and it'll be like, I may go one here, I may get in a truck and drive over here. I may spend the day doing it, but it's not all in one spot. But when I do slip those places, just say, for instance, it's a 100-acre cypress pond. So we got a pond here. We got dry ground all the way around. It's basically an island, not an island, but the opposite of an island. It's a pond, but you got hill all the way around it. And then it may be an open hole of water in the middle. It could just be deeper in the middle and then get shallow. It could all be underwater. It could have thick edges where it holds water and it doesn't burn right on the edge. There's all different types of things that will affect where the deer would lay. So if it's a type of pond that is maybe open water in the middle, there's no trees. If you look at a map, you're seeing an open hole of water, or a heisened over hole of water. If it's that type of pond, then we know the deer aren't laying in the middle in the open water. There might be little islands or something you can see. In those type of ponds, then I'm gonna figure the deer are laying closer out to the edge where it's thicker, not open water. So what I want to do is get the wind coming off the hill, because I'm assuming, the water is going to be the main safety, if there's water, which majority of the time there is. I don't think I would ever slip one if there wasn't water. But water is going to be the main safety factor, but they're still going to be able to see. They're going to be on an elevated place. or they're going to be backed up in some thick where they can see with the wind coming off the hill to them. So my favorite thing to do when I'm slipping those areas is maybe the cypress pond has a little nook. So the dry ground sticks out, and it may be 10 yards. Sticks out a little farther into the cypress pond here, and the wind's coming this way. So I'm thinking, say it's 500 yards from this edge of the cypress pond all the way across to the other edge is 500 yards, 300 yards, whatever it is. I'm going to think that the deer are coming in right here, and they're hanging out, they're doing whatever they're doing, they're finding a place to lay down. So they're closer to the edge with the wind coming off the hill. So what I want to do is get way back here out of where they can't smell me, they can't see me, and I'm expecting them to be looking into the pond if the wind's coming off the hill. They're going to be laid down facing into the pond. So I basically want to come at them crossways, but I want to be coming from the pond side of the deer. If I'm slipping, I don't want to be on the hillside where they're expecting danger to come from. I want to be out in the water, and then I'm barely moving, like just barely moving. And you'll be surprised how many times you can just creep and not make a sound and just go from like cover to cover, one step at a time, and stand, and you'll see an ear twitch, or you'll see horns turn, or you'll see a deer stand up and move around. But I want to be on the water side of the deer with the deer looking this way, and I'm coming basically broadside to them. I don't want them looking straight at me, but I want to be farther in the pond than the deer is, and I'm basically only having to look this way. I don't have to survey the whole area because the deer aren't going to be laid out there in the water. They're going to be over here, so I can move through there with a focus as I'm looking over here, and I'm barely moving. So that would be that type of situation. I don't do that often. If I do, it's going to be with a gun. I'm sure I did it. I'll take that back. Most of the time it's with a gun. I did it with a bow, probably 2020 or something. I knew there was a bachelor group, and they were coming off point going to lay in the pond. The wind was good for it. I was having no luck getting them outside the pond during the daylight, all that. So I moved in and got out, and it was thigh deep water, and I slipped up to where they should be laying somewhere here, and I hadn't gone quite far enough out just because it opened up a little bit, but they had came out of the thick and were laying on a hill probably 10 by 15 foot or something, up 3 foot out of the water. So they were laying up on that, and they were almost to my right as I'm slipping this way expecting the deer to be here. They'd come off the point, came out in the open water, and laid on a little island. Once I got close, I could see them, but I couldn't get any closer. I couldn't do anything about it. I'd like to shoot under 30 yards, and they were at 55. So I couldn't get any closer to them. If the pond is dry, not holding water, then I feel like a lot harder. It's hard to be quiet. They're typically thicker. Deer aren't using the water as safety, so you might as well just be slipping through a palmetto patch. There's nothing there. I mean, the water is the safety factor. So I probably won't look at a pond that's not standing in water. Next thing, and this is where I think a lot of people are getting it wrong, and maybe I wasn't clear on what I'm doing, but when I'm going slip hunting, and this is something I'm trying to do, on weekdays, stuff like that. I'm not just going to where a bunch of people are hunting and walking through the woods messing everybody up. So make sure we're clear on that. But I'm looking at particular management areas for this. So when I say I'm slipping a swamp, I'm not necessarily slipping a cypress pond in a management area that is 80% palmettos and pines and stuff. I'm going to a swamp. So it may be 10,000 acres, 50,000 acres, 100,000 acres, whatever it is. It's huge and it's vast and it's swamp. I could walk that direction for as long as I wanted to, and I'm not going to run out of swamp. That's the swamps that I'm slipping. Now, it may be river swamp to where there's a mile stretch of river swamp, and I can get in at one end and maybe even take 2 vehicles and leave one, but I could walk 20 miles if I wanted to. So I'm not slipping. I'm not necessarily slipping like cypress ponds, and I think that's where some people are getting confused. I'm picking out low pressure areas, low pressure swamps, maybe it's places where guys typically set up on the buck sign up on ridges a half mile away or something like that, and I get out there in the water in the nasty junk, in the mud and everything else, and I just stay in the sloughs and slip through. And I do it with archery, but most of the time it's a whole lot more pleasant to slip once it's cooled down a little bit. And that's in general gun, so I've got a rifle most of the time. I don't know, there's a lot of things to take into account when slipping in water, I think, and talking to different canine officers that track for prisons, and they're doing training year round, and guys that train blood dogs or tracking dogs, I think even duck dogs. But they'll say, like, when our scent hits the water, it basically like disperses over the surface of the water. So a lot of times, like, prisoners running will strip off all their clothes, jump in the water, and go down a creek or go down a river or whatever, thinking they're going to lose the dog, but that the dog is able to pick up that much more scent because it's the current's pushing it up on the leaf, the wind's the scent kind of just goes everywhere, and the dog can really smell good then. And I'll see that when we're deer dog hunting. A deer go in the water and do him a loop or something, which they can lose dogs because dogs aren't really that smart. But if I'm with them, there's no way they're gonna lose me with the dog's nose, if that makes sense. So the deer hits the water, does a loop or a couple loops, and comes out the other side. Well, the dogs hit the water and it's just rah! They're everywhere because they can smell it so good. But if I'm with them, I know, yeah, deer came out over here somewhere. Let's do a loop over and hit him and let's go. But what I'm getting at is, I think we got to be careful. Really watch the wind direction. We got to watch the wind direction all the time. But if our scent is basically floating on top of the water and blowing and being dispersed and stuff, we would really have to have a good wind. And a lot of people will tell you to slip or even set up with the wind hitting you in the face. You want the wind in your face, slipping. I don't like the wind in my face. I like, basically, from the first illustration I did of I'm slipping through the pond, I want to be on the right side of the deer. I want the deer on my left, so I want the wind hitting me in the left side of the head. So I want to slip crosswind, and I'll do that for feeding deer. I'll do that for deer going to bed. I'll do that for anything, because bucks are typically gonna move, with the wind in their nose, or they may travel wind to nose and then feed wind to back. When their head's down, the wind's hitting them in the back. So there's more chances of seeing the deer broadside than there are straight on or if that makes sense. I try to slip with the wind hitting me somewhere in the side or quartering, is generally what I'm trying to do. But what I really want to be clear on is, I'm not looking at my local management area that is 50,000 acres, 80% palmettos and pines, and some scattered oaks and stuff, and picking out a 30-acre cypress pond in the middle of it and saying I'm going to go slip a swamp. That's not what I'm calling a swamp. That's just a cypress pond. When I'm talking swamps, I'm talking like river swamps, creek swamps, head of creeks, head of rivers, where it's just a big, vast, thousands of acre swamp. I've used green swamp before as a talking point, but if you look at green swamp, it has a lot of pines, palmettos, and oaks, and then there's some bigger swamps, which some of them you can't go through because the mud's up over your waist. But there's a river swamp, there's a creek swamp, there's some bigger swamps. That's typically swamps. When I'm referring to a swamp, it's some type of flowing water swamp. I'm not saying you can't be successful slipping around in cypress ponds, because I'm sure you can, and I have. But I don't think I'm seeking out certain places and certain swamps to go slip. I'm not going to my management area where everybody's sitting in a tree stand and expecting to go slip in a little 30-acre cypress pond and kill the big buck. which that might be where he is, but he could be in that one day, and that one the next day, and that one the next day, and that one the next day. So, I mean, you'd almost have to get lucky. But I'm slipping, like, even places I talked about, it's hard to slip when there's not any water. But if there's a little wind noise and maybe the leaves are soft, it's rained, or it's not crunchy, I may slip a dry swamp. And when I'm doing that, then I'm kind of going from buck sign to buck sign, or I'm going, depending on the phase of the rut, or I'm going, like, there'll be some type of thick patches, whether that's willows, that's myrtle trees. There might be briars. There's thick clumps. It may just be overgrown vegetation, vines. There's thick junk in them swamps that the bucks will lay in, and I'll kind of skirt my way through there, trying to keep my wind from blowing into them thick places. And it may be, depending on time of the day, it may be something where I just slip up there and I get to a place where I can see a couple good cracks pretty good. I may stand there for an hour or 2 hours, or whatever, and then move again. But what I'm not doing is going to the 30-acre cypress pond and trying to slip around it, because I mean, if there's only going to be, if it has water and it's wind-based bedding, there's only going to be one spot in that pond they're laying. So if I was going to do that and knew I wouldn't mess anybody up, then yeah, I would go check. I'd go check that one spot, and I'd go to another pond, check that one spot, and I'd go to another pond, check that one spot, and after 10 of them, I might hit where the bucks are. But I'm not just going out there walking around in a little cypress pond. When I'm doing this, and I've said it a million times, but when I'm doing this, I'm wearing tennis shoes. I'm wearing my ghillie top and my ghillie hat, and I'm not waving my arms around. I'm keeping everything inside my body. Going from cover to cover, staying in the shade, barely moving, trying to keep, like, if I can see a little opening or something, I'm coming up to a little opening and the wind's blowing this way. Well, I don't want to just walk through the opening, so I'm gonna skirt on the downwind side of the opening, where I can see, but I'm still in the shade and maybe some thicker palmetto, whatever it is, thicker bushes, and they're not seeing me, and it keeps as far as deer's eyesight goes, it keeps the advantage in my favor. You'll be, especially on a windy day, you would be absolutely amazed what you can get away with, because everything's moving. That's why the deer don't move when it's windy, or as good when it's windy, but everything's moving. The bushes are blowing. So I'm walking through there. I may walk right up 5 foot from a deer laying there, and and they don't have a clue. Picking the day has a lot to do with it also. I'm not just going slipping all the time. There's times where it's not beneficial at all. Making too much noise, the wind's not good, whatever the case may be. But anyway, I wanted to clarify all that. I made up a few of these goofy shirts. There's my logo. Made up a few different shirts playing with it. Anyway, I'll get the website public here pretty soon, and anybody wants to buy a shirt or hat or whatever, be able to do it. I can't stand the YouTube videos that turned into just pushing merchandise, so I'm not going to be pushing anything. Anyway, thank you all for watching. We'll see you on the next one.